This is former WWE superstar Al Snow, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Hey guys, my name is James Walsh, and you are listening to the Wrestling Epicenter here on YouTube. I want to thank you for finding us. Please do me a favor and click that subscribe button and the notifications bell. And if you get the chance on this video, click the like button. If you do, it'll turn blue. Check it out. Also, check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for all this great content available in MP3 format, our online store that'll keep us going free and clear, daily news updates, as well as all the information from the history of professional wrestling you could possibly ever want. Check out WrestlingEpicenter.com online right now. Without any delay, let's get to your interview here on the Wrestling Epicenter.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here live again on Blog Talk Radio and WrestlingEpicenter.com, and we're getting right off the bat and started. First of all, let me introduce myself. It's James Walsh, joined as always by Mr. Patrick Kelly.
Top of the morning to you, lads. I'm going to say that every week now.
Just because Kevin Thorne gave you crap about the Howdy folks or whatever it was.
No, he didn't give me crap. He gave me advice.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay. And Nick Knoll is with us.
Yes, I am.
And I believe Al Snow is with us. Al, you with us?
Hello, yes, and I've got to admit that the introduction music has got to be some of the most annoying noise I have ever heard in my entire life.
I agree, but that's kind of what we're going for.
If I happened to fall asleep, I would have thank you very much for waking me up. Holy, that is teeth grinding.
That's what I was going for. Kind of get your attention, if nothing else. Thank God we don't have that anymore. When you log on to the internet, you have to...
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Like a dentist drill.
What's that again?
Yeah, or like nails
like
on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. So it's been a hectic week for us here. We have a lot going on tonight. We have Al Snow with us for the first little while, and later on we'll be joined by Nova. And it's going to be a two-part interview with Nova, so it'll be a fun night for us. And Al, you guys are both going to be appearing at an event that we're very happy to be helping promote, and that is the Legends of the Arena, where a lot of the original ECW talent gets together and gets a chance to perform in the arena where it all began one more time. Francine's promoting it. It's for a great cause. The American Cancer Society will get a donation. You looking forward to getting back in the arena where it all began?
I'm looking forward to being a part of this. It's, like you said, it's for a great cause. It hits home for me as much, I'm sure, as it does for Francine. You know, Francine lost both her father and her sister in a very short amount of time to, the terrible disease of cancer. And I lost my sister and my father, both,
really?
to it too. So, I'm very, very happy to get to be a part of this, for a lot of reasons, but, that would be one of the majority of it, yeah, that this is going to go to benefit a great cause, and it's a chance for a lot of, for a lot of guys, for us to see a lot of people and, relive some of the moments back in the ECW arena and maybe capture a little bit of magic that we had years ago one more time before it fades away completely.
Now, we kind of talked about this with Nova. There's been a lot of companies that have worked the ECW arena since then, and I think they thought that just by playing the arena, they'd get that same magic, and they really didn't accomplish that. But do you think that maybe getting the original crew back together, with it obviously being to be a, whether they'll say it in the press releases or not, a reunion of the original ECW superstars, do you think that maybe, the real ECW faithful that used to, get red-faced and pound their chest and chant those letters, you think they're going to come out in droves and really capture that magic one more time?
I hope so. I really hope that not only will you get the fans that were there the first time around, but you'll get, maybe some new ones too to come and, I'd love nothing more than for Francine and to benefit the charitable cause. I'd love nothing more than to be able to turn people away, to be like it used to be, where they were lining up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, no matter what the weather was, around the block, waiting to get into that building. I'd love for that to happen again one more time.
Now, you've performed in many arenas, Madison Square Garden, which I just found out today, and I hope I didn't see on the news that they just tore down, but I heard a rumor that they were going to rebuild it, and I think that's a damn travesty, but that's just my opinion. You've wrestled at MSG, you've wrestled in stadiums, I mean, you've wrestled all over the world. What about this little bingo hall in PA makes this building so special?
I think it was a combination of the fans, a combination of the right talent, and a combination of it being at the right time. It was just catching lightning in a bottle. It didn't happen overnight. I mean, a lot of people think that, it just happened overnight, but, when ECW first started with Todd Gordon, with the Eastern Championship Wrestling or whatever, and Eddie Gilbert was the booker, and then, Eddie unfortunately had passed away, and then, it evolved to become, where Paulie was involved, and, and different talent came in and went out. When it first started up, it wasn't like it was running 4 nights a week. They were just running once a month in that bingo hall, and initially they were lucky to fill it, and it just took a lot of dedication and a lot of passion and a lot of drive to, get those people to continue to keep coming back and, become almost a number 3 major promotion, within the country. There was WWE, then there was WCW, and then ECW.
Right. I mean, and it was. Everybody that was a wrestling fan referred to it as the Big 3. That's what we had. I mean, we knew that ECW was obviously the smaller of the 3, but still, it was also the most hungry.
Yeah, it was a factor. It did play a factor on the national front. And again, there was, there were a lot of things, a lot of components that, made that happen. It was the right thing at the right time, with the right group of people, with the right management, in the right direction, and it worked. Thank goodness,
Absolutely. Now
we asked this to Simon.
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, well, we asked this to Simon Dean or Nova last night, and he thinks that I believe he told us that the energy and the atmosphere that ECW created could never be recaptured. Do you agree with that, or do you think it can be recaptured?
I would imagine it probably could. I mean, it's been, there were different times that different territories had, just as fervent a following as they did in ECW during that time. What with, Bill Watts' promotion back when it was really hot, Memphis when it was really hot, Mid-Atlantic when it was really hot, Florida Texas when the Von Erichs were, they were gods. I mean, the Von Erichs were literally marketed, Pizza Hut. You went and you bought a pizza and you got Von Erich merchandise. It was to drive another product, that had nothing to do with wrestling. So, I'm sure that could be done once again. I mean, it just would be a matter of course, getting the right talent at the right time and just making that magic happen one more time.
Absolutely. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about ECW in a second, but you mentioned the right people at the right time, and a company you appeared for all of about 35 seconds, TNA. A lot of people are saying, well, it's their time now. It's their time to really shine and things like that. This is actually a question coming from our chat room, and they're asking, what do you see as the pros and cons of TNA wrestling? That's a loaded question, I know.
It's still a very loaded question. I mean, that's you're asking for my opinion, and you're asking for me to make some assumptions, I guess, and some speculation when I don't know the real. I don't work for the company. I'm not inside the company, and due to my busy schedule, I don't watch it. So so for me to venture an opinion in a public forum based on pure assumption and speculation,
right.
That would, a lot of people do that these days,
Exactly.
But I'm trying not to, because it would, I probably would venture a lot of negative comments or suggestions that, really probably are baseless and have no foundation, because I just don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know what I'm talking about. So
what happened there? Why were you only there for that couple appearances? One appearance, really?
I don't know.
You don't
I
even
couldn't
know?
tell you. I don't know. I was brought in. I can tell you exactly what I know. I was called, contacted. I was asked to come down, and I was for the pay-per-view to do the thing with Mick Foley. I was asked to then call back again and ask, could you stay for the TVs? It was my assumption, the reason they wanted me to stay, and I was kind of led to believe that there might be a possibility that they might do something with me on the TVs. It was my assumption that, of course, they would, because it only makes sense to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, even if it's just for those 3 days. Come down, do something, distract Mick. The next day, explain your motivations, maybe get just a little more heat, and then on Tuesday, give it back to him, pay him, put him back over, give it back, let him get back over on you, and then if it works out, continue forward. If it doesn't, that you're done. And but they did the thing on Sunday, and I assume that they had certain ideas and plans, and for whatever reason, and I couldn't tell you what it would be, Monday came, I was asked to sit in the production meeting, nothing was stated, no acknowledgement, no anything about what happened the night before. Mm-hmm. And then Tuesday, the same thing. I was told that, Jeff wanted to talk to me. I waited around until finally Tuesday night I was leaving. I said goodbye. Vince Russo got Jeff, and Jeff talked to me for, a brief time, and, said he would get back with me after the first year, which then Vince Russo contacted me to contact Jeff. I did so, never heard from either one of them, and then I was contacted again by Jeff in February, and I haven't heard from him since. So, I assume that they just, I don't fit into their plans, which is okay, I understand. That's no problem. I keep more than busy enough doing a lot of other things. So, and I wish them nothing but the best. So, So again, to ask why, I do think it is their chance. I mean, they've got a national TV show, and it is a great opportunity to possibly, do something. But as to why or if they have, or I couldn't, I don't want to, even venture an opinion, because, of course, like I said, it would be based on assumption and speculation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we have a couple more questions for you, and obviously we're going to kind of center a lot of this around ECW, since we really want to promote, and I didn't actually mention the website yet. Anybody who wants to purchase tickets for Legends of the Arena can go to thearena.biz or the MySpace page, which is myspace.com/Legends of the Arena, and you'll be. And
I would encourage people to come, because it's it's going to be. I'm sure it'll be a great show. It'll be a lot of there will be some of that magic there that night. And for those that have experienced ECW, please show up and experience it again. And for those of you that haven't, and you've always heard about it, I'd suggest you come. And and if for nothing else, you're going to have an opportunity to help support a great cause. So
absolutely, and that's I think what I've been saying is, not only do you get the satisfaction of doing something that is joyful to you, because you're going to be going to really a great reunion show with matches and the opportunity to do an autograph signings and everything.
Sure.
Not only are you doing that, but you're also doing it for a good cause. It's like going to see your favorite rock band and finding out that the money that you gave them is actually going to a charity instead. It's like, oh wow, yeah. I get my cake and I get to eat it too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It's fantastic. It'll be a great time. It really will.
I'm looking forward to hearing how it turns out. Unfortunately, I'm out in the Arizona desert, so I won't be able to make it. But hopefully, a lot of people will turn out and make it a great show. We talked about this with Terry Funk, and I wanted to get your take on it. I suggested this shortly after actually the show after WrestleMania, and we talked about it with Terry Funk, who actually brought it up, which made me kind of smile because he thought the same thing I did. If you watched WrestleMania, you saw that there was a lot of the original ECW influence in there. There was a lot of hardcore, there was a lot of blood and guts wrestling, and he says that you could have taken Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, put it in the ECW arena, and the fans would have bought it. He said that was an ECW-style match. Do you think that the effects of the original ECW ultimately did shape wrestling as we know it?
Yeah, I think for both bad and good, yeah, certainly.
Bad and good. That's interesting. What makes you say that?
What do I say that? Well, there's it would be a lengthy discussion to say, but it both have positive and negative influences, certainly.
Absolutely.
On the wrestling business, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think those effects are still being felt, to this day.
Now, with the ECW that is running around right now, which everybody's saying, oh, it's bad, it's that, the other thing. It's not that bad. It's just that it's not what we know as ECW. Do you think that?
Well, that's understandable. I think that it's not Paul Heyman's vision. It's Vince McMahon's vision. Which any time that you went, even back in the day when you worked for a different territory, different territories varied style-wise and presentation-wise and feel-wise because they had a different promoter or booker. And Vince is trying to appeal to as large an audience as possible and not to just a very select few. It's where he's going to make the most money. And of course, like I said, the original ECW had that concoction or that formula of having the right talent and crew at the right time, at the right place. It all fell in together. And to try and recapture that again, I don't even know how many years later, would be very difficult to do.
And I think we've said this a lot on the show, is it's not really that the product is bad. I think people would actually like it because it's just wrestling. There's not 15-minute promos to start the show. It's pretty much just matches. I think people would like it if it just wasn't called ECW.
Oh, I'm certain. I'm sure. Calling it ECW, and let's face facts. Who doesn't like it is probably, as far as a percentage of the audience, a far smaller percentage than probably who do. The vast majority of people probably do like it, of wrestling fans that tune in every week.
Right.
It is, the vocal few that don't, and that's what unfortunately, they're the ones that make their voice known. The ones that like it don't have anything to complain about because they like it, so it kind of goes, they don't say anything.
Right.
And, the ones that don't like it, of course, are going to be the first ones to pipe up and say something somewhere in some forum to let you know their opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, again, guys, you want to close out with a couple questions here? Because I've kind of dominated this one here.
You pretty much everything's been answered, but thank you so much for coming on the show, Mr. Snow. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. I always enjoy coming on the show, and
there is one other thing I do want to ask you about. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I did want to ask you about a story that we discussed on the phone the other day. Seeing how we have Nova coming on later on the show, my wife actually was a big fan of yours. She's got good taste, I guess.
Well, I got one. Yeah.
She's a big fan. When I said we were having Nova on, and I said, and we're having Al Snow's going to be on live, and Nova's going to be the pre-tape, and she said, well, you have to ask Al about the story that he told on that DVD. So last night we actually popped the DVD in, so I knew what she was talking about. And apparently Nova used to pull a lot of ribs on you, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, no, it was kind of a back-and-forth type of thing.
Really?
Unfortunately, a lot of what I would send that way got encountered by his mother and father, because at the time he was living with his mom and dad. He and his brother, Donnie B. It was the two of them. They worked in tandem together.
Really?
Yeah. And so, some things would happen, and then I would do things back, and back and forth, so it went back and forth for quite a while until finally, and I don't think this had anything to do with them. I think because Jamie Dundee was booking the Jerry Springer show at the time, and the Jerry Springer show called my house, and my ex-wife freaked out and was like, "Oh, you taking me on the Jerry Springer show to reveal something?" I'm like, "Are you out of your mind?" Of course not. And even if I did have something actually to reveal, which I didn't, I certainly wouldn't do it on the Jerry Springer show. Are you out of you lunatic? So that caused a lot of drama, and then that was when she thought that they had something to do with it, and pretty much had put the brakes on that one.
Oh boy!
That's it. We're done. And I had already kind of stopped because the mother and father had kept getting the brunt of it for the most part. So I, felt kind of bad that they always kept getting the majority running into it. So running blocking for it.
Now, you guys crossed paths again. I believe you were probably did a lot with OVW together.
Yeah. Indirectly or directly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you were there together though. Did those ribs pick up again, or did you kind of leave it?
No.
Leave it at that.
No, it was done. Pretty much. I don't do much of that anymore. So.
What is it, like a maturity thing, or what happens with that with the ribs?
You get tired after a while. So there for a while you did it just because it was fun to do. Then,
Excellent. Well, we do have a couple other questions from the forums.
Sure.
It's probably stuff that we've already asked you, but
ask away. The only dumb one's the one you guys don't ask.
Exactly. I guess you could say that. And this is kind of strange. But this is I'm going to read it exactly as it's worded, and I'm not going to try to make it make sense. So it says, opinion of Pepper the dog and Pierre the, what the hell? Deerhead. There we go.
Opinion of? My opinion of them was that they were great for different reasons, People still remember Pepper and come up and talk about it all the time, more so than they do Pierre, but I loved Pierre far much more. Pierre was, I thought was far more entertaining than Pepper. And of course, Pepper, being an actual obnoxious little chihuahua, I had actually pitched the idea of having Pepper on the pole match, much like a tetherball game, to finish things out between myself and Boss Man, but didn't quite go for that.
Well, this is probably an inappropriate question, but how did Pepper taste?
Actually kind of disgusting. And kind of creamy and stringy.
But it wasn't spicy.
No, it wasn't spicy. No, I don't like spicy.
No. Again, here's another one. Your opinion of the European title reign where you dressed in stereotypical European clothing. Again, I'm reading this.
Again, at the time that I did it, being short-sighted and not quite understanding. Like I've stated in the past, that every time you go to the ring, it's an opportunity. Not realizing that, at the time, I just thought, I felt kind of ridiculous at times, and, I thought, well, if it's as ridiculous, I'm going to make it as ridiculous as possible, just might as well take it to the limit. And that was where I started bringing out more and more stuff, and just, figuring, you want me to do this like a fool? Well, I'll really do it. And, but now, I realized people really were entertained by that. Bringing it up again, I cannot tell you how many people have. How long ago has that been? And it wasn't for a very long, time, but a long period of time. But people remember it, and it really must have struck a chord because a lot of people have always said, "Oh, I just remember when you did that, and it was so funny, and I really enjoyed it." And So now I look back and I go, wow, that was, this is a great opportunity to entertain people and to make an impression. So.
I actually had a friend in high school who that European title gimmick was actually his favorite gimmick ever, and he was devastated when they ended it.
Really?
Yeah, it was like,
at the time you just think, this is, dumb or whatever. But boy, I tell you, people really thought it was, apparently, because I'm just telling you, from the number of people that have either brought it up or talked to me about it or asked me about it, that you're just really surprised at how much of a chord it struck with people. They really enjoyed it.
Actually, we have a caller calling in, and it's a good friend of the show, Mr. Eric Clancy. Eric, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here, guys.
All right, welcome, Eric. And we have Al Snow on the line. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask for Al?
Yeah, you know what? I actually was just thinking about this.
If you called in.
Yeah, I'm on the show normally, but and I normally was handling after the first interview. But I did. One of my favorite things that you did was, and they didn't really continue it beyond I think a cage match on SmackDown, but you had a short feud with The Rock. Just want to know how you felt creatively and artistically about that feud and working with him.
Oh, I enjoyed it. And he's such a wonderful guy. I mean, he's such a down to earth, good person. It was great. I screwed it up. It would have probably lasted longer, but I dropped the ball. So
what do you mean by that?
It was a very little thing, but it was a very big thing. It was in Madison Square Garden, and it makes me sick every time I think about it. But I was in Madison Square Garden for the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Was in the Royal Rumble for a very long time. That thing had been going on between Rock and I. Rock's music hit. I turned toward the entrance, waiting for him to come out, because I was going to jump him. As he slid in the ring, he said something. I thought that, he said, get out of the way or something, like he had some kind of spot or something. So I just turned and let him slide on by and go fight with somebody else. I just completely ignored it. And that was so stupid of me. And it made no sense. And, pretty much, I cut my own throat. At the time, didn't realize it, but looking back on it now and from a different perspective, I just, want to hang myself, because it was such a dumb mistake in a big forum, and should not have happened. But, we all have our regrets. So
now you obviously have done some acting in the past as well, and you always you mentioned to me the other day that you have other projects as well outside of wrestling. Is there anything you'd like to mention?
God, I hate to do that because it sounds like, the typical Hollywood thing. Because I swear to you, I've probably got 10 different projects that are supposed to happen, and I'm working on right now 3 different projects outside of wrestling that have to do with acting and producing and stuff like that. And I'm very blessed and very fortunate and very lucky to get to do these things, and I enjoy them. But it sounds like, when I sit there and I talk about the proposed possible projects, it sounds like, like the big Hollywood thing, but it's kind of ridiculous because, to be honest with you, if I had a turd in one hand and all of these possibilities in the other, I'd basically just have a turd in my hand. So,
That's a heck of
just like with wrestling, I don't count on anything. I write it all down in pencil until I've been there, paid for it, back home, and the check hasn't bounced. I know that nothing's absolutely for certain. But I do have a lot of things, and am working on a horror film. An all horror film, new take on the vampire flick with midgets. I'm going to call it Ankle Biters. So
that sounds like
I just thought it sounded funny. So.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. Well, I want to close out with one final question, and it's kind of a picking your brain kind of thing. Now, we've seen your career, obviously, and we've seen that you've had a lot of success in tag ranks. And we wanted to ask your opinion on the current state of tag wrestling and your honest opinion on what could possibly make tag wrestling recapture the magic that it once had.
Well, I think what's happened is that it's indicative of a lot of things that have occurred within the business, and I always explain, and I think I probably did a great boring link the last time that you work the gimmick of whatever match to tell your story to do your business. The gimmick of a tag match is that, and the gimmick meaning that the vehicle that's going to allow you to win a match is to tag in and out. And too many times these days in tag matches, you a lot of times just see two singles matches where guy A will get in with the guy A of the other team. They'll do their spots. They'll tag out, and guy B will get in, and they'll do their spots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They each take their turns to do their things, and they don't really work in conjunction, and they don't get across the idea that they're required to tag in and out, thus ensuring the idea that they would win. And the more that they would do that, the more they would work as a team and get that across. I think the match itself will get more over. And that's kind of been lost. You know, it's become two singles matches instead of one tag match. Does that make sense? I don't know.
It makes sense to me. I mean, I long for the days of the hot tag and things like that, but it seems like right now...
Well,
go ahead.
You know, to further explain, I don't mean to cut you off, I truly apologize, but to further explain is for instance, you know, and I always use this as an example because it's easy to remember, is that, let's say it's a dildo on a pole match. You know, the first guy up the pole grabs the dildo, wins the match. You know, he gets to use it on the other guy and beat it, right? So if the bell rings, what's the first thing they should do? Both guys, the bell rings, they should try to go for the pole, to get up the pole and get the dildo. What usually happens nowadays? The bell rings, and they'll wrestle for 15 to 20 minutes, doing 100 different things until they finally head up the pole. Well, by that time, it doesn't mean anything.
If you remember, one thing that I always thought was great was in 2000, I believe, it was the ladder between Edge and Christian and the Hardys. The bell rang, and as the Hardys were coming, like they were outside the ring or something, Edge and Christian immediately just ran up the ladder. And I thought that was one of the best things, because what you do, you go up for the belt instantly.
Exactly, and now that immediately teaches the audience that, hey, these guys got to get up that ladder and get to the belt. And, you know, so everything evolves around and revolves around getting up the ladder and getting to the belt. You know, it's the same with just a regular singles match. Where you win is on the mat. You win by the two predominant ways of pinfall or submission. The bell rings. The simplest psychology of wrestling is take the guy down, try to keep him there to increase your odds of winning. And you know, the guy would then do everything he could to get out of that and then reverse it to get you down and keep you down, and that's how high spots evolve. That doesn't really happen anymore, you know. And both with singles matches, tag matches, you know, any kind of match, ladder match, it gives everything you do now so much more consequence and weight. You know, think if you went to see a boxing match, and the bell rang, or an MMA fight, and the guys didn't look like they were trying to do what they needed to do to win the match, you wouldn't pay to see it again. And wrestling is no different. I mean, it's the exact same thing.
Now, Al, I have a question, and I don't know if we're going over time or anything, but it kind of in regards to this and going into the psychology of a match. I had a kind of different question about tag wrestling. I very rarely enjoy just a standard tag match on wrestling anymore, because to me it seems like you can cut out every single, up until the final 5 minutes. Like once the hot tag comes in, either two things are going to happen. Either you know, the lead, the hot baby face is going to hit his finisher, the other one will knock the guy out of the ring and he'll get the pin, or the heels will cheat and everybody's in the ring at the same time. It seems like that's always the finish. That's the template that everyone uses. Is there a way that, I mean, obviously you train wrestlers, obviously you're clearly, you talk about the psychology in depth. Is there a way to freshen it up so that there's not just two endings to every tag match? I mean, obviously there's going to be a winner and a loser, but does it have to end in like all four guys in the ring after the hot tag every single time? I mean, it just seems so repetitive to me.
Unfortunately, all matches have become repetitive because all matches are using that paint-by-numbers formula I call the 7 deadly steps of wrestling. And, you know, the wrestlers themselves have kind of forgotten that once you step through those ropes, you can make people believe anything, at least for the time they're there. They want to believe. All of course, under the context that you're out there trying to win and not lose. And, for instance, you know, for how many years has it been that I've made people believe believe that I could knock somebody out with a plastic head. You know, the truth is, I can't. So you could be in the throes of a major stroke, of a grand mal seizure, and I couldn't even then knock you out unconscious with a plastic head to be able to pin you. But does that make sense?
Exactly.
So once you step through the ropes, you're only limited by your own creativity and your own imagination as to how you go about telling that story of trying to win and trying not to lose. And unfortunately now, it is so driven into everybody that it has to be those 7 steps, and that like a tag match has to follow that exact way it's done every single time, that it's not that creativity, that imagination, that it's all gone. It's become
and
plastic.
Is that because of the wrestling bubble, so to speak, that a lot of people talk about? You're so in the business that this is the way it's done, this is the way it's been done, that people lose that innovative quality. We had Armando Alejandro Estrada a few weeks ago, and he was I argued with him over the finish of WrestleMania. I felt Orton should have gone over, not Triple H, and he felt the reason was that Orton should have lost because Triple H had jobbed to him previously, and then so he's returning the favor because that's the way it's done in wrestling. Do you think a lot of times these traditions and these quote-unquote rules that have been set get in the way of the product and bringing a more exciting output to the fans?
That I do agree with. I think that, it has nothing to do with, because somebody jobs, so he's returning the favor. Eventually he will return the favor, but it should be done at the right time and done for the right reason, of trying to drive business. I think that a lot of times the guys, so to speak, look at things like as if all the fans look at it like they do, and you've got to remember to look at it just as a fan and look at it as, as just really comes down to the only reason that you would have one guy win is if he's a heel, is to put heat on him. The only reason you're putting heat on him is to eventually use that heat to get a babyface more over. The only reason you're going to get that babyface more over is so that eventually, at some point in time, you're going to use that babyface being over to put more heat on either the heel that brought him over, or put more heat on another heel that then will now be used to get that babyface even more over, or get another babyface even more over.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I always use the example of Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14. And a huge reason, obviously, Steve's character was red hot. He was a great performer. All that stuff was going into it. But the fact was, Shawn Michaels had gotten zero comeuppance since he turned heel up until Austin. And the fact that Austin beat a white-hot heel was such a huge factor in propelling him over. I thought that they don't do that so much anymore. It's like there's never that they don't build them up as much as they used to, as far as just keeping the momentum going until, like you said, transferring it to another face, another heel, or what have you.
Yeah, and the art of wrestling is really the art is to make an audience want, then beg for, and then plead for, and then crawl across broken glass for whatever it is you want them to want, and then at your choosing, you decide to give it to them, but only to give it to them to now make them want something else even more. And and that I can't say because I didn't see WrestleMania and I didn't see the finish, but of any of the matches. So again, just like the TNA, it's purely speculation on my part, But you've got to people. I say this, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it is possible, very possible. But I try to explain that what was fake in 1909 about wrestling is what's fake in 2009. There's only one thing that's fake in wrestling. The only thing that's fake about wrestling is the finish, the outcome, the fact that somebody wins and somebody loses. And thus, the only thing that people pay to believe in when they show up at a show is they want to believe, at least if nothing else, for the time that they're in the building watching, that the outcome really matters, that the outcome is going to, it means something, that it has a consequence if you lose, that it carries weight, and that you don't want to lose, so that then the fans don't want you to lose, or you want to win, and you're the guy that the fans don't want to win. It becomes so much about pleasing. it's become so much about beating the other guy up, and so little about just beating each other that revolves around every other question that you've asked tonight. It's got to go back more about beating the guy and not just beating him up. Even back in the day when the angles would be the most personal driven blood angles, you kicked the guy's dog, you slapped his kid, you shoved his mother-in-law who was in a wheelchair down the stairs, you screwed his wife. At the end of the day, the audience paid to come back and see the babyface not just beat the guy up, but beat the guy up to beat him, to prove that he was the better man, to get his revenge by showing, hey, at the end of the day, I won.
Right.
And now it's just about beating the other guy up a lot of times, on all levels of the business.
Absolutely. Hey, one last caller, and then we're going to let you go. And now we can't thank you enough for spending so much time with us tonight.
I appreciate you having me.
Caller calling from the 847 area code.
Hello?
Caller, are you with us?
Hello?
Who is this?
Oh, this is Andre. Hey, guys.
Hey, Andres, how you doing?
Good. I'm sorry, I came in late and I didn't recognize the voice. Who's on the line?
This is Al Snow.
Oh, hey, how's it going, Al Snow?
I'm very well. Did you have nothing to do tonight? You just thought you'd call in and hang out, or what?
A little something like that. I really enjoyed that point you made about how it's not about winning anymore.
That's my opinion. I just don't think it's enough. I use the explanation that there are two predominant ways to win a wrestling match, which are pinfall submission. But there are two predominant ways to win a boxing match, and that's by knockout or by decision, which is that, one boxer hits the other boxer more times without being hit. And then there's two predominant ways to win an MMA fight, and that's by knockout or submission.
Right.
If you were to pay your money to see an MMA fight or a boxing fight, and you could clearly see that the two guys were not trying to do one or the other of either one of those things to win the match the minute the bell rang, you wouldn't want to pay to see it again. And in a wrestling match, those two things take place 99.9% of the time on the canvas, on the mat. So if the bell rings, psychologically, you would think the first thing you'd want to do is look for a way to get the guy off balance, off his feet, and on the mat, and keep him there for as long as possible to either make him give up or pin him. And the other guy would try to get away. But it's not done like that anymore. It's now just action for action's sake.
Exactly.
And there's no consequence to the action. If there's no consequence, there's no drama. And if there's no drama, there's no emotional connection. If there's no emotional connection, why do people need to come?
That's exactly right. And watching it, for the past several years, there's been a lot of guys who cut promos and say, I'm not coming to win, I'm coming to beat you up. But when you have things that happened like a few months ago where John Cena takes a bump through a spotlight
and comes back the next night, oh yeah, that was great.
And is back the next night on Raw, and granted he looked a little worse for wear, but theoretically if he actually got thrown through the spotlight and it really exploded, he would be in the hospital for a couple of weeks.
Al was actually there when Triple H fell out the car and then came back the next night with a Band-Aid on his face.
Well, what can you say? I mean,
my point is basically, why would we even bother believing in the beating up process if basically the most extreme of bumps doesn't seem to take the guy off of television for any amount of time? Or damage
that's something that you'd have to ask. I don't know what your question is. I mean, are you asking me why do they do it, or that way?
I was more making a point than making a question, but yeah.
If it's a question, I think you'd have to ask the people that are responsible for doing it that way. Ask them.
Absolutely.
That would be there because it'd be there to say I don't know what it would be. To be honest with you, I don't know. Because if you were to have them take that kind of bump back in the day, I mean, you'd have them take that kind of bump. I think probably, and this is an assumption on my part, I think that talent-wise, they're so worried that they can't risk, keeping that talent off of the TV for such an extended period of time. They're afraid that it would the ratings would drop or the interest would drop.
When the ratings are dropping anyway.
Well, it may in turn actually drive interest and create ratings if, they were to do something like that, because there would then be that consequence, to whatever action. But
yep.
I don't know. I mean, look, who am I? I mean, I'm not a billionaire. I don't have my own wrestling company, so what do I know?
Exactly.
Well, you talked about action for the sake of action, and I was just thinking about it in my mind. Do you think that maybe that's happened as a result of the wrestlers living for the internet fans who put up their star ratings and their match of the year candidates? Do you think that maybe that's had some kind of effect on the way that guys wrestle these days?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If you go to any, and that started with WrestleMania 3, that mindset. If you go to any show, name the level of the show, but you go to it and ask anybody in the locker room, what are they there for? What's their motivation there? And they will, the vast majority of them will all stand up and say, I'm here to have the best match on the show. And I think that's wrong. You should be there to have the match that sells the most tickets. That's your job, really, is to sell tickets. And to be honest with you, the vast majority of the guys, they don't care what the attendance is. All they care about is if they had a great match. And the only way you really know that you had a great match is if fans who aren't in the business, that don't know anything about the business, don't understand what it is you're really out there trying to do, because they don't have the experience. Now, they're entitled, don't get me wrong, everybody's entitled to their criticisms, they're entitled to their opinions, they've paid their money, they are more than welcome to discuss whatever it is they want about the product. They paid to see it. I have no problem with that. But what the problem is that now the guys dictate their performance based on what the person's opinion is of it, and not what the attendance of the show is. Can I tell a quick little story?
Feel free.
To illustrate this point?
Sure.
To drive it home?
Absolutely.
Okay. A while back, I was in Syracuse, New York, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. I don't know. I have no sense of time. To see it to work on a show. And I was working on the show, and, that afternoon show up, and a lot of the guys were all talking about a guy named Jesse and how they were so concerned because Jesse would be in attendance tonight, and that they needed to make sure they had the best match on the show because Jesse would write a report on the internet about their match. And, this Jesse was, apparently, if he wrote a positive or a negative report, it really meant something to them, And I thought, well, who's this Jesse? Is this like Dave Meltzer or, Wade Keller or something like that? This guy seems to carry a lot of weight, which is kind of absurd anyways, but just a fan is carrying that much influence, but apparently this Jesse does. So, the day goes on, and before the show, I go out to, sell my pictures and T-shirts and generally whore myself out. What do you do? And I'm sitting there at the table, and a young kid approaches and starts talking to me. And, I ask him his name. I ask how old he is, and he's like, he's 13 years old. But this kid's like probably the most intelligent, mature, knowledgeable 13-year-old I've ever met. I mean, he's sophisticated, It's like talking to a 35-year-old man. He's not 13. That's why I asked him his age. I said, man, how old are you? I said, he said, oh, I'm 13. I said, you're kidding. And, just the way he was talking and acting, if you didn't see him physically standing in front of you, you just sworn you were talking to an adult. And guess what he knew everything about? He knew everything about wrestling.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, guess what else he knew everything about?
What's that?
My career. My career. Yeah. So he begins to talk to me as if he is a 20-some-plus year vet and asking me questions. And, I talk to him as if he's a 13-year-old child. Not being disrespectful, but certainly not talking to him as if he's Robert Gibson or Bob Eaton or,
right.
Andre the Giant or somebody like that, who's performed and done this for a living for quite a long time. I talk to him like he's a 13-year-old child. I mean, come on, the kid, his testicles haven't even dropped. He hasn't even went through puberty yet. The last time he was in a woman was either in the birth canal or when he visited the Statue of Liberty. So my son is 20 years old. My daughter's 21. I don't listen to them. So why am I going to listen, have a conversation where I listen to this kid discussing what I do for a living, as if he's done it too. And so he gets frustrated with me, and I say, oh, by the way, what's your name? And guess what his name was, guys?
Jesse.
Yes, it was.
Oh, my God.
Jesse. So now there are a group of professionals who are supposed professionals who are allowing a 13-year-old child to dictate what they will do to attempt to make a living, to feed their families.
Wow.
A child who is lucky enough that if he mows the lawn will get a weekly allowance, has no responsibilities, has no concept of what it would take to pay rent and to feed his children and put clothes on their back.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't know, doesn't care. But every one of those people that were performing there that night were concerned about a 13-year-old kid's opinion of what their match would be.
Wow. Now, what was the review of your match? If you don't, do you remember?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but it was not a good match. So that's inconsequential. But it was horrible. But it does. The point is that the wrestlers themselves show up hoping to have the best match on the show, and not caring whether or not they had the match that sold, that they were the attraction, that they were the reason that the most tickets were sold. And it's become a mindset throughout the business.
Now, you mentioned WrestleMania 3 at the start of this, and I wanted to go back to that and maybe close out with this question. Is what about WrestleMania 3 made you think that way? Are we talking about the difference between Hogan Andre and Steamboat Savage, or what are we referring to? Okay.
Yeah. Because if you ask anybody what was the best match on WrestleMania 3, everybody will say unequivocally that it was Savage and Steamboat. And that was kind of where it kind of started. And technically, and I'm not taking anything away from what they did, I'm sure, but, to be honest with you, and what the match that was the best match was the match that sold the most tickets. And the match that sold the most tickets was Hogan and Andre. 93,000 people paid to see Hogan and Andre. And if you listen to old wrestlers, Pat O'Connor, Lou Thesz, Walter Kowalski, any of those guys, when they talk about, like, when they sold out Kaminsky Park or any of those, big shows, right?
Right.
You never, ever hear them discuss the quality of the match. They'll just say it was a great match. We had this many people there.
Yeah.
Every one of those guys, that's all they concerned themselves with, were how many people were in the building. And the reason they did was because that allowed them to, if there were fewer people there, that meant their payoff was less. And if the payoff was less, then the way they fed their families was not as, they weren't as capable of feeding their families. Not to mention, if they were not a contributory factor or were not the factor in why people showed up in that building, the likelihood of them getting booked on the next show went down. So their opportunity to make a living went away. Do you guys understand?
Oh, I agree.
And so the focus of trying to have the best match on the show, which has become really the driving focus of any wrestler, and not being the match that sells the most tickets, is what's doing a lot of harm to the business.
Ironically, we discussed that a little bit with Nova, where he was talking about how many Match of the Year candidates he reads about on the Internet that took place in front of 150 people. He said, it's amazing.
You can have the greatest match in the history of wrestling. The greatest match in the history of wrestling. And let's say that 500 people showed up. Let's say that 2,000 people showed up. You run the same building next month, and only 80 people show up. Was it the greatest match in the history of wrestling, or was it not? If it didn't,
but we're talking about two different categories, though. At this point, we're talking about creatively and technically an impressive match, and we're talking about drawing-wise a great match. And I'm actually one of the few people who enjoys Hogan and Andre over Savage and Steamboat. Because basically, the way I measure how a match is great is how emotionally invested I, as a viewer, watch it, like a film, like a play, like anything along those lines.
And that's a wrestler's job. It is not to have a technically great match. It's to get you emotionally vested to the point to where you'll pay to see them again. That's what wrestlers is. Wrestlers all believe that it's not about getting you emotionally invested in them and paying to see them again. They now believe that it's all about having the best technically sound match.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's the same with a and this is my approach towards all art, and I fully believe, especially as an actor, that wrestling is an art form, no matter what anyone says. And the fact is, same with a film, same with a play. I mean, you can have all your technical camera angles, all you want. The fact is, if you are not emotionally invested in the characters, in the story, anything, then it doesn't matter. Nothing matters because because that's what art is. Art is emotional. It's not technical, it's not logistical. And I mean, at first I thought you were just talking about drawing money, like maybe if the main event like sold tickets, but it's terrible. But I mean, I see we're on the same page now as far as emotional investment in the match, and yes, I definitely do agree with that.
Yeah, that goes back to your question about why tag matches and every other match are so formulaic. It's paint by numbers. It's everybody can be a painter, but not everybody can be an artist. Everybody can be a wrestler. Anybody can put a pair of boots and a pair of trunks on and be a wrestler, but not everybody can be a worker, to work the audience and work their emotions and to let them become emotionally invested in your personality, your character, the fact that if you win or lose, because really that's the only consequence that anybody can relate to as a general audience. Sure, you can do a great hammerlock or a great headlock takeover or whatever, but if it's not done at the right time for the right reason, it won't elicit an emotional connection or response. And if it doesn't elicit that emotional connection or response, it's paint by numbers. It's plastic. It doesn't have that feeling that will drive people to want to show up.
Yeah, I think obviously, like you said, those technical skills are there not just because they're there. They're there to help you achieve that connection with the audience. And hopefully, if done right and you use these tools correctly, you can do that. But not just doing it, just doing it and going through the motions. There has to be some. I mean, there's that's one of the reasons. My favorite wrestlers are the ones who can combine those two things. Like Shawn Michaels, especially in his prime, guys like that. As opposed to guys who are just great technical workers or just great showmen. I think the guys that can put them both together, for me, are the ones that just hold my attention the longest.
But again, great technical worker. That there isn't them. Great technical wrestler, yes. A worker is a guy who goes out there and works the audience. A work is to lie, and to get the majority of people to believe in the lie.
Right.
And the only way you're going to get the people to believe is to get them to believe in the thing that they came to believe in, which is that the win and loss mean everything, that it's about the competition. Because they can't, listen, if you've never wrestled a day in your life, if you've never hit the ropes, you've never drop kicked, you don't know what that feels like. You have no physical relationship to it, so you don't relate to it. All you relate to is that you like this guy for this reason, you don't like this guy for this reason, and you hope this guy wins and you hope this guy loses. And if there's nothing else to relate to as far as professional wrestling.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, Al.
My point was that nowadays everybody is so driven to get that positive critique from the fans, those knowledgeable fans that believe that they know everything, that they're so wanting to have the best match that they're foregoing the idea of trying to have the match that sells the most tickets. And emotion is what sells the most tickets, not technical best matches. And if I would say that their definition of the best match might be just incorrect. They're thinking of the best match as being technically sound. You and I and the people on this radio show believe that the best match is the one that gives you an emotional reaction to the match. Yeah, absolutely. They're the one, and as a result, allows you, the wrestler, to do what your real job is. Your real job is not to go out there and wrestle a great match. Your real job is go out there and try to put as many butts in as many seats as possible.
Yep.
Al, you wrestled in Japan a lot, haven't you?
I went over there on 4 different occasions.
I'm curious. What do the fans expect? I was talking about like the fans here want the emotion. Is you think that's a U.S. mentality or overall? Or like overall?
Japanese psychology is different than American psychology, and not different. It's still about winning and losing, but I'll explain. The reason that there is such a large audience for football, baseball, and basketball in the United States is because the vast majority of us have played it either as kids, either in our backyards, at family reunion, and the driveway. Certainly, a lot of people have played it as organized sports in school. So they all have a physical relationship with what's happening on the field. To make you understand, that's why hockey is a bigger sport and a bigger draw in Canada than it is in the United States, because more people played hockey as kids than they did here in the United States. That's why soccer is bigger all over the rest of the world than it is here in the United States. Soccer is growing, and why is it growing as far as a spectator sport? Because more people are playing it as children. And, another 10, 15 years, you'll see a boom in soccer. You'll start seeing more professional soccer organizations. And they'll actually start to draw an audience. The point I'm trying to make is that in Japan, the national sport in Japan is, does anybody know?
Wrestling, I believe.
No, it's sumo.
Sumo.
It's judo.
Judo.
Judo. They play judo, and the term is play. They play judo in school. Like you would play in PE, you would play baseball or football or, touch football or basketball.
Right.
They play judo. So everybody in the audience physically knows what it feels like to be thrown, physically knows what it feels like to be choked out, physically knows what it feels like to have an armbar put on. They know what it feels like to tap out. So when they're watching the match, they have a physical relationship with it that people here in the United States or in other countries don't. You follow?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And as a result, and I mentioned this to a couple of young guys who were beating the living crap out of each other. And I said, why are you doing that? And they said, well, we want to make them believe it's real. I said, you're never going to make them believe it's real. And they, what are you talking about? I said, because that's not what's fake. The ring, if you ask anybody, you just go up and ask somebody in Walmart, what's the ring in professional wrestling? They'll tell you it's either a trampoline or a mattress.
Exactly.
Yeah, they love that stupid trampoline analogy that I have no idea where they got this from.
If you've ever been in a ring, you know that thing sometimes is hard as a brick. Yeah,
it's hard.
Well, if you can't get them to believe that the ring is nothing more than a trampoline or a mattress, no matter how hard you hit the other guy, do you think they're ever going to believe it? No. And why? Because they're never going to believe that no matter how hard you hit the other guy, that you were using it to beat him.
Well, yeah, I think the reality of it
about wrestling is that it's not about winning and losing. It was about that's the only thing that's fake. And listen, these guys haven't reinvented the wheel. There were guys that were beating the living crap out of each other back in the 50s and the 60s. They were kicking. Man, believe me, I worked with a lot of them when I first spoke into business, and they would kill you. I mean, literally kill you. But at the end of the day, that wasn't what was fake. Greg Valentine was never fake when it came to laying in forearms and stuff. His dad, Johnny Valentine, oh my God, what a crowbar. Never fake. Ronnie Garvin, never fake. But then you'd watch him get beat. Bruiser Brody, never fake. But when he got beat, it was fake.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's because the real thing about professional wrestling is the conflict. Everybody can relate to having an issue with somebody, and the conflict between two people is what draws you in. Obviously, that's going to be the big factor, and I think that's what's the factor in everything we watch, from professional sports to theater to movie. Yeah. It's the conflict.
Hey, how funny is
the characters that you relate to, the personalities, the whys and the wherefores that created that conflict.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Al, we've had you on for over an hour, and we can't thank you enough for spending the time.
That was a long 10-minute interview.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I apologize for monopolizing.
Oh, no, we appreciate it.
No, I'll tell you what, man. The longer interviews always are better, because usually if the guy sticks around by their own accord, they're actually enjoying what they're talking about. So,
right.
Well, I love the wrestling business. I mean, I've been doing it for 27 years, and I dearly love the wrestling business. I'm transitioning and moving out of it and doing, other things and stuff like that hopefully will, replace the passion and the enjoyment that I've had in wrestling. But I'll tell you right now, the wrestling business, the business itself is the greatest business in the world. I've been very blessed to have been basically on vacation for 27 years. I've not had to work one day in my life. I mean, I've been a very lucky guy to be able to have done what I love to do for as long as I've loved to do it, as many times as I have screwed up in this business. So,
wow, nice to hear a positive outlook.
Exactly. That's not common, unfortunately, with a lot of the guests. A lot of the guests have a negative viewpoint, so it's great to hear a positive. Now, last question, and this time I mean it. You're wrestling at the Legends of the Arena. You're scheduled to face Shane Douglas. Now, I asked you in one of our first interviews that at the WrestlePalooza 98 pay-per-view, a lot of people were very, very shocked that you didn't go over, especially considering Shane was hurt. You looking to get maybe the return of the favor, as we discussed earlier, this June 27th?
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. Whatever Francine wants is what I'll do. I could care less. It makes no difference to me.
Excellent. Well,
it'd be fun to get to maybe get the favor returned, but I'm not counting on it, and I could care less. Remember, what's the one thing that's fake about wrestling? The win or the loss.
Exactly. There you go.
And just to drive that point home, everybody always asks what's Job Squad really about, and everybody thought it was always about a group of losers or a group of jobbers. It wasn't. It was my way of pointing out to a bunch of other people that who thought they were really winning in the wrestling business that you don't really beat me. That the pin me, pay me was kind of drive that point home.
You guys played all about me.
And that was.
I'm just a driver.
Kind of
That's the line.
What's going on in the background there? There's a lot going on in the background.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that is, but all right. Well, Al, we really can't thank you enough for spending this much time with us, and we'll be in contact in the coming months, and we wish you the absolute best of luck, and have fun with this show, and please, have fun with it, and hopefully it'll be a great crowd.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a great night for everybody. I think it'll be a terrific night, and I really appreciate Francine doing it for such a great cause, and also giving us a chance to maybe relive one last time the glory days.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Al Snow on the Interactive Interview. Please stay tuned, and we will be back with more, and we'll be joined by Nova in just a few moments. So stay tuned, guys.